boys YouTube channel. Hello, welcome to this video. I'm going to be talking to Dunk Murphy, aka Sunken Foal, and Minced Oath for a little bit for a chat. You can't see you yet. I'll stick it on gallery for a second. Yes, there he is. So, welcome, Dunk. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. First, I'd like to ask you a little bit about your background getting into music. Like, what was the first musical memories you can remember having?
My parents used to travel a bit, so they always kind of brought home funny instruments. They'd go to Africa and to the Far East a little bit, and they'd bring back odd little kalimbas and little drums and stuff like that. And I was just smitten by them. And I was also really getting into like tape. Everybody had a tape recorder then. This is the 80s, so tape recording was always really interesting to me. Splicing tapes up a bit or just, pause and record stuff. But my brothers or older brothers really into music. They were into like goth and indie and stuff like that growing up. So that kind of, I'm still really obsessed with Susie and the Banshees, and that comes from my brothers really. So that was kind of it. And I started playing like classical piano. I did that for a while, and then just picked up the guitar myself, and that's really where I started to kind of write my own stuff, was with guitar.
What age were you when you started guitar?
When I started playing guitar, I was probably I played piano from when I was kind of like 6 or 7, but I started dicking around on the guitar maybe when I was like 11 or 12, 13. So in those teenage years when I was discovering Sonic Youth and Fugazi, all that sort of stuff, that was my guitar time.
Yes, similar to myself. I was 12 when I started playing guitar, and Caleb Peinado, who I was chatting to, the first interview I did was with him. He also was started with guitar. I think he was about 8, but it's kind of interesting. Like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of electronic music which is not made from the basis of having played an instrument, and that's some of that's amazing for that reason, probably, that it's like so in the computer world or machine world. But having
I think a big thing is if you talk to UK producers or even producers in the States and in Europe, in kind of Belgium or France, hip hop, I think, was a real way in for a lot of people. Did the whole MPC world, and like I remember talking to the guys from Plaid. I am You're probably a fan of Plaid. I don't know, but
yeah.
they certainly didn't really spend any time listening to guitar music as teenagers. It was hip hop and electro was the way into music for them. So it's
Yes.
a bit of an Irish thing, I think.
Yeah. And Dan Curtin as well. He would have been hip hop, the break dancing scene and that. Yeah, definitely good point. Um, it's interesting about the African instruments, the kalimbas and drums and stuff. That's interesting that they went to Africa. What parts of Africa did they go to?
I remember them being in Kenya at one point. It's a long time ago, so I was very young, so I can't really remember. But
Yeah.
actually, I have a shaker there
Glass.
that came from Kenya in the early 80s at some point. I have a few of those kind of bits and bobs still that I've managed to keep.
Yeah.
They usually make it onto my recordings at some point. I don't know.
Wow, that's brilliant. I had an aunt who went to live in Gambia, and
Oh wow.
she was there for like a couple of years. And when she came home, she brought a kora,
Oh wow.
like a massive kora, like she brought it with her as well as all her stuff to give to me, which was like unbelievable. But
You still have it?
no, I don't have it anymore. I gave it away to like a African group of musicians or something. But
Wow.
I had it for about a year before. I just didn't know how to tune it. Like, it had 21 strings, 11 on one side, 10 on the other, and I had no idea. But one time there was a Cora workshop in Dublin, and I brought it, and it was unbelievable. It was like, I think it was the Solo Suzuko, that Griot guy. He did some gigs here and some workshops. And when I brought the Cora to him, he just could take a look at it and go, "Oh, I know who made this."
Wow.
Even though he wasn't from the Gambia, He was from
Mali?
Senegal, I think,
Okay.
next door, or Mali, one of those. But anyway, making the instrument is part of the playing of the instrument.
Amazing. Wow. It's
It
kind of
is.
pentatonic, isn't it? The way it's tuned.
It's actually tuned in the major scale.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
right. Because I'm a big fan of Tiamane Diabate. I don't know if you
Oh
know his
yeah,
music. That those few records he made with Ale Farcature are kind of at the very, very, very top for me. They're just like my
totally.
most listened to records. I think they're so incredible.
But yeah, music from Africa is something, another level of rhythm in it.
Yeah, the mixture of the interplay between rhythm and melody is just fantastic, and also that kind of balance between structure and improvisation on that stuff is it's just hits this sweet spot that's just incredible. It's just magic, like it
Yeah,
really, really.
100%.
Mm.
I remember when I went to Glastonbury, the one time that I went to Glastonbury, I went to see Square Pusher, but like I missed his set by like half an hour because it took so long to find the stage. But then after that, we just like went from tent to tent seeing like shit bands and going like, this is just shit.
Yeah,
And the only good thing the whole time, the whole weekend was like some African drummers in a field. They were like proper African drummers from Senegal, like or Ghana or something. It was like six of them just playing drums. We were watching them for like an hour, just going, "Oh my god!" It's just, you know, this like sounds like they've just been playing all day, every day, their whole lives. It's like just so powerful.
I went to Glastonbury years ago to see autechre. Must have been late 90s, early noughties, I think. And same as yourself, saw it was piss and rain, saw Ian Brown, who was just awful, couldn't sing a note, and then went the next day to try and find autechre, and it was like a deluge. It was crazy World War I trenches rain. And we walked for hours to get to the dance tent to see autechre, and someone had the bright idea of using the toilet trucks that suck all the shit out of the what are they called, portaloos, and they were
Oh
going to suck
god.
all the mud off the dance floor. Someone pressed blow instead of
Oh
suck.
Jesus.
So that gig was cancelled, and we were all very disappointed and upset. Yeah.
That sounds horrendous.
It was. Yeah.
But let's
But
get.
I'd forgotten that memory.
Uh, be funny to chat to them about that. But yeah, before we get onto that gig, the recent one. So you were playing guitar then, and what what point did you get into making electronic music yourself?
There was always like my brother always had like little keyboards. There was like a Casio SK1 floating around the house that I loved playing with that stuff. And I like Vince Clarke was massive to me growing up. I loved Yazoo and early Depeche Mode. I just devoured that stuff. And I remember at one point. I think my dad bought me a Korg M1 and it had a sequencer in it. I still have it. It's over there. It's leaning up against the wall over there. And I don't think it works anymore, but there was a little step sequencer in that. So I just got into sequencing in that and was just amazed at the way that you could approach music that way and kept going from there, really.
What was
I,
what was the next stuff you got after the Korg?
Well, was working for about a year, just making loads of these recordings into a tape from my M1. And a friend of mine said, "Here, I know another guy who lives down the road who has Cubase on his computer." And that was Trev from Ambulance. So I
Ah,
called in Trev with my M1 and we started making music together, and just kept buying more and more and more and more gear. That was really how that started. So that's like what? Late 90s, I suppose, mid
yeah.
late 90s. Yeah.
On the Korg with Cubase, were you able to like, have 16 different MIDI sounds all happening at the same time, so you could like
Yeah,
have
it
a
was
beat?
it was 8 part multi-timbral on a Korg as far as I remember.
Yeah.
And then Trev had like a Korg DW 8000, which is still an awesome synth. And we just kept borrowing bits and pieces, and just we used 4-track tape recorders a lot of the time as well. But just kept going from there, really. You were kind of making music around the same time, I think.
Yeah, similar kind of thing. I got a Yamaha CS1X was my first synth, this blue
I
synth.
had one too. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
you playing one of them in the funnel in like
yeah.
90s. Yeah, yeah, totally.
And that was like the same idea. Like just with Cubase and that, you
Yeah.
could you could start making tracks. It was so like incredibly exciting to be able to like have a beat and a bass line and a chord and a melody and hear
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
they had like a full sampled 909 and an 808 in the keyboard, and you could make shit out of that. That was great fun. I remember all that. Yeah.
You know, the funny thing is, like at the time, I kind of just assumed the sounds weren't that good because, like, it was just not that expensive of a synth, and it was just the first one. And it was like, well, you know, you probably need to get like a real 909 to make it sound really good. And like when I
Mm.
listen back to the cassettes of the recordings now, those beats sound perfectly fine. They're like
Yeah, yeah, totally.
perfectly fine.
I agree. I totally agree. The synth voice might be a bit lacking, but
Yeah,
it's what you make with it. It's the idea is really like once you start mixing loads of sound together, that original sound kind of gets masked a little bit. So I wouldn't be too precious about that stuff. I do
yeah,
like the idea though of when you start off with a sound source that is really good, that it is inspiring. That like maybe the recording when everything's mixed together might you might not get that absolute beauty. You're going down to kind of a 16-bit sound on your CD or whatever, but the inspiration of that original sound is really important, I think,
yeah.
to
I
start
was
you off.
But I was like making tapes and stuff, but there was no mixing going on really, I was just recording to onto a cassette tape these like
Yeah.
16 part tracks coming out of the synth. So, it wasn't being mixed. Like it
Yeah.
was just like there's a beat and there's a chord. And like playing it to the D1 guys and stuff, they'd be like, the ideas in this are great. You need to get a mixing desk.
Yeah, it was but my cousin Barry, the last sound.
Yeah,
My cousin Barry, and
right.
he had a CS1X and he ran an Amiga. I can't remember what it's kind of like tracker software he ran on his Amiga. And I saw him doing that and I was like, wow, I have to do that too. So there was that going on as well.
What tracker did you use?
I never got into tracker, but he had one. I don't know what it was. I just used whatever Trev had, which was Cubase at the
Yeah.
time on like Windows 3.1. The days of big lugging around huge big like CRT monitors to gigs as well was just insane. We used,
Yeah, like a PC proper desktop
yeah, we did that for
power
years,
load.
bringing around like big tower desktop computers. Insane.
I know it's just like a proper car load of gear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, funny times. But when you plugged it all in, like, and you heard it coming out of the club sound system, like in the sound check, did you get that
Yeah.
kind of just experience of with the volume level just going, oh my God, this sounds like something.
No, I was always going, this sounds absolutely shit. Get
Oh,
me out.
really?
Yeah, I hate it. I still don't like it. Like I still like it's so rare I play a gig where I like what it sounds like. It's always a diluted version of what it could be. Like I much prefer records to live gigs a lot of the time
Yeah.
because I like how they sound, and gigs don't really sound very good a lot of the time to me. But so they're like, but every now and again, you get like an amazing engineer and an amazing room, and it's worthwhile, but it's rare.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've got a memory of just like the first gigs in the funnel being in the sound check and just the sheer volume coming out of the club speakers, making the sounds into like physical objects and being like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, that's the way it's supposed to be.
I enjoyed other people for that, but usually when we were doing something in ambulance, we just had too many things going on, and I couldn't figure anything out, and it was just a big spaghetti nightmare. But we persevered.
I'm sure they sounded better than you thought they did, maybe.
I would doubt
But
it.
I mean, that most recent gig supporting autechre, that was that was like an incredible night. Just, you know, not just me saying that. Nearly everyone I know who went to the gig, you know, just had it was a very special night.
It's
Everything.
always a special night when they play, I think, but that was their performance was absolutely one of the most stellar things I've ever experienced. It was absolutely incredible. Like, yeah, I was
Did you?
just,
You said you'd seen them 15 times, was it?
yeah, I reckon I've seen them maybe like 13, 14, 15 times. I don't know. I'm going to see them
Yeah.
again in Barcelona actually in April.
Class. That'll
Uh,
be really interesting to see how the set's developing from.
yeah, I see. I saw them do that set as well, or like a part of this kind of ongoing thing they're doing. I saw them do it in the Barbican about a year ago, and it was the start of doing all that kind of hip hop stuff that they were doing in uh Vicar Street recently, and it was absolutely stellar. And they even beat that again when they played in Vicar Street. It was just yeah, it's the best kind of music because it's impossible to verbalize. I find it's so difficult to put a linguistic spin on what they're doing, which is the essence to me of what good music is in a way. It's really, really good.
100%. Yeah, there's a few things I can remember, but mostly that gig put me into a kind of another state almost. I was just like far away. I was,
Oh yeah, totally. It was it was the way I keep thinking about it was I just got into this completely present tense state where I wasn't thinking about anything that had happened or what was about to come. I was just completely there, which has got to be quite a positive thing, I suppose. I don't know, but it was just everyone was just bewildered afterwards. I did know a few people who left who couldn't handle it. I get that. I totally understand that.
ah,
But I just thought it was absolutely fantastic.
yeah, I didn't meet anyone like that after. Yeah, for sure, understandable. I brought like two of friends along, one of whom had never heard any autechre or not even much electronic music,
Yeah.
and another one who was a fan, and both of them really enjoyed it. The way,
Yeah, my stepson came and
oh yeah,
he was like, "Whoa!" Yeah, it was great. It's really, really cool.
and so did you work like when you found out you were doing the support slot? Did you start working on a set for a long time, or how did the set work for you?
No, it didn't actually. Well, we were supposed to do a gig in Manchester the year before together, but that sort of fell through. These things happen, but I've just been developing this kind of live Minced performance setup, and like I was booked to do the gig like like 8 months before it happened, but I was like, usually I do this thing where I work really furiously up to a gig, writing new music for it. And I decided to not do that at all and just try and really sort of relax, set it up so that I could improvise and just let something happen in the moment more than really planning it. And because I just had a feeling that would be the right way to do it. And I think autechre were really happy with what I was doing as well because they were saying that sometimes they get support acts who try and pander to them a little bit and maybe try and make something that trying to be like them. And I was like, I have to really try not to do that. So I knew that they'd go sort of intense. So I thought I probably shouldn't do anything that's too intense, really. So it was great fun to do, and like playing to their audience was a big honor because maybe there's a crossover in sort of the area I work in and what they are the masters of. So it was
Yeah,
a great honor to play to their crowd. It was great.
yeah, it doesn't come around that often, the opportunity to play.
Oh, it wasn't.
I mean,
Yeah,
how many people were there? Like 1,500? Does Vicar Street hold that many, or is there over a
like
thousand people?
1,200 to 1,500, something like
Yeah,
that.
that
It
is
was pretty much, it was almost sold out as well, I think. So
it's really mind-boggling that that music gets that many people. Like, it's way out there, but like
yeah.
it's brilliant that so many people are attracted by it. It's like if you just really keep focusing and honing in on this crazy sound. It doesn't matter how out there it is. It's kind of like people
I think that they're,
recognize.
I could be wrong, but I do think sometimes they might be sometimes trading on past stuff that there's a lot of people who loved their first few records and then fell off a little bit.
Yeah,
I tend to really like whatever the new thing they're doing is, I tend to like it the most. And I think they're doing their best work now. And then tomorrow they'll be doing their best work tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? It's always on this, it's this crazy trajectory that just goes like that. And it doesn't show any signs of dipping to me. I really enjoy it.
for sure. I mean, what you said before about you tend to like records more than live performances, and that's true for me for mostly. But autechre seem to be like against that because like
Yeah.
early on their records were absolute classics. You know, I loved them, listened to them loads of times, but I haven't listened to their last few albums. Like I listened to Sign once, and I need to. I keep thinking I need to go back and listen to it again, but I've seen them twice. You know, 2019 and then the last October, and both of those gigs are just stood out like as top of the year kind of moments of. So they've taken performance to somewhere it's never been taken to by any electronic people, in my opinion.
I
They've
totally agree. And the other thing that I think is really quite curious about them, you probably have a better vantage on this as a jazz musician, but there's something that I love the whole darkness thing that they do.
yeah, big
But
time.
I remember seeing them in the Tivoli some years ago, and it was so apparent. It was in the dark, but it was so apparent that this was a live performance. There was no question that this could have been something that was dialed in. This was an absolute reaction to the audience, or there was just something mercurial happening that is very, very difficult to put your finger on. Again, it's sort of transcending the linguistic, I think, and that's just kind of the holy grail in a way. I don't know.
I do have this theory that it's not a theory, it's just a kind of philosophy or something that when you're making a recording, because it's non real time, you could spend 3 months on making the best 10 seconds. You know, you could go to like very extreme lengths to make the music as perfect as possible. But in a performance, it's the exact opposite of that, where the more improvised it is, the the better it is for the performance because it is something that only happens one time. And if you prepare loads for the performance, and then it's just not as fresh when it's actually happening.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you.
But
Yeah,
the improvising can also, it's risky. Like you introduce risk. That's why it's so, you know, you're on the edge of your seat as a listener
yeah,
because it can go wrong at any second. Like it can
yeah.
all fall apart. So it brings excitement.
But there's some sort of message or some sort of language or connection that happens in there that's so hard to put your finger on. Maybe it's a trumpeter and they play their piece, their improvisation completely perfect, but those risks, even without looking at it, you know that they're there. Something gets translated there that's, I find, so hard to actually explain.
Yeah.
Kind of great.
Yeah.
It's
It's very,
something I think about with making music with these synthesizers and all that, is that, you know, computers and microchips and whatnot are like, use this sort of binary language. There are all these kind of little compartments, bits of information, whereas human beings are completely like organic material. So it's a very odd thing to do. So I always think about that when I'm making music, that it's sort of like you're kind of making music through the lens of this binary system. So human beings have all these kind of organic flaws, and these machines are trying to be perfect. So it's the fight between those two things that I love exploring. So I'm always trying to put in those kind of like flaws into the music. Maybe that's a little bit off the point of the live stuff, but that's something that I think about with electronic music anyway.
yeah, it's a great point. The going digital and getting everything as perfect as possible. You know, you can have something super clean and it can have no life at all, being too clean and perfect. So,
There's a great aesthetic in that too, as well. But I just find that I always get drawn to things that have a little flaw, that have a rift in them, and I kind of want to expose that and play in that area a bit. Like, so I do a lot of stuff with uh imperfect timing a lot of the time. It's very rare that I would use a perfect grid,
Hmm.
and also with tuning, also like tuning things off that kind of Western scale a bit and making things go a bit wonky. It just seems to it exposes that sort of relationship between the musician and the machines or something. I don't know. That's where
Yeah.
the aesthetic lies that I'm sort of chasing sometimes.
And getting into Reveal and Finder, was that a collection of tracks you were working on and thinking of it as an album, or was it more like a collection that was put together from a whole lot of tracks that you made and picked out? Like,
A bit of both, I think.
yeah.
Like it was about a year ago I was writing all that stuff, so that's a long time ago. I've written so much music since, so it's really hard to kind of think about it. But I'm still working on a commission for a theater piece that's actually for children, and the brief was to write some kind of electronic music, but it's become a very big artistic process, and some of the material kind of came from the development of that. But I just as I was amassing this particular lump of tunes, there's about 20 or 25 tunes. I started to think, oh, there's a good album in here. And then really started to think about my buddy Paul, who runs Front End Synthetics. So I sent all of the stuff to him and was like, would you be interested in release any of that? And he's like, yeah, totally. And he helped me pick out the tracks that he liked. And so Paul's quite important in that, I think, in how that all came about, you know.
Great. So there's 14 tracks that made it onto the album.
Is
And
there?
yeah, 14, yeah.
That's too many. Jesus.
Oh man, I don't think any of them should have been left out. No, that's the 14 great tracks.
Okay.
It's like, I mean, do you feel about this album any feelings in particular, like how it sits among other stuff you've released, or just do you even think about stuff after it gets released at all, or just move on?
Usually just move on to the next thing, but I
Yeah,
usually think that a record is usually just a stepping stone in just you're developing all the time, and that sort of sets out a little bit of a marker, maybe, you know. And it's also kind of what I was using, like uh loads most of that started with this, which is a subharmonicon, a Moog subharmonicon. I don't know if you've used one of them
no,
before, but it's cool. It's another way of thinking about melody and time. It's about polyrhythm and about subharmonics. So polyrhythm I've always been really interested in, but in terms of composition, if I was to write something in with like, you know, chords or a melody, I usually think bottom up. I think bass and then work upwards. Whereas this composing subharmonically, you work the other way around. You start off with your high notes, then you start adding subharmonics and seeing where that leads you. And you're usually pushed into a more kind of pentatonic or major scale kind of area, which I don't always do. So it was really fun to kind of explore that kind of area. So things ended up being a bit maybe brighter or poppier than usual. I don't know.
right. So, like this very first bit of the first track,
Yeah.
that descending line, is that the Moog there?
No, that's actually the
Ah,
OB6 and an 808 clone.
yeah,
Um the 808 stuff is there. I have one of these Behringer RD8 clones.
yeah.
I think you might have a Behringer drum machine, do you?
No Behringers, no.
Oh, I thought I saw something in one of your YouTube clips, but there's a really weird sequencer in it. It's like really badly designed, but in a way that's kind of great. But it has this functionality of kind of a polyrhythmic setup, so you can set, you know, your snare drum to be on an 8 beat pattern, but then your kick drum is on a 9 quarter note pattern, and then your hats are on a triplet, and you can keep overlaying these things so that it takes a long time to resolve. It usually, what I like to do is kind of get it up to that state where the listener probably is not even going to delineate what's happening at all. That's not the point. It's more about a kind of, not to overwhelm a listener, but to kind of just live in this sort of state of sort of, what's the word, anticipation, sort of, where things
Absolutely.
fall.
Oh yeah. I yeah, I pointed that out in the video I made last week about the bass drum pattern on that track that I didn't notice at first, but on like repeated listens, you go, wait a minute. You kind of go, wait, is that pattern even repeating? And you
Yeah, it always is in everything. It always repeats, but it's just where they're placed,
would
really.
take a while.
Yeah, and but like I don't really care if somebody spots it or not. It's more
Yeah,
about the affect of that thing, of that ground shifting, like a parallax all the time, where things are moving around.
sure.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I love the idea of things moving within a structure.
yeah,
So
big time. This is,
you end up composing in terms of infrastructure. So you're not composing about what's happening right now. You're composing about hoping where things will fall. So there's a lot of sitting around listening for a good while and then uh tinkering, thinking, okay, this is settling nicely now. I'll press record. That kind of way of working.
right. Yeah, it's pretty different from kind of penciling in and out things on a MIDI box.
Yeah, I kind of did that for a long time, so kind of don't do that really anymore. I like to kind of live in the in the media, live in the material for a while and see what happens.
And with the OB6 pattern, the tuning on that one sounds like not 12 tone equal temperament. Is it like a different?
Probably not. No, I wouldn't think so. There's actually a load of inbuilt tuning systems in that synth. There's like there's Wendy Carlos's kind of odd tuning system in there, and there's like quarter tone stuff and all that. So I don't know what I was using, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
And then when the piano chords come in a bit later, is that you actually playing a piano?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
the
piano
piano
over
over
there
there
somewhere.
somewhere.
Oh, nice.
It's a
It's a
banger
banger.
that I bought for like 900 quid
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah. It
And
has to be every single time you play it. Like
did you? I mean, they sound nice. The chords sound like well recorded. Like, did it take a while to get that? Did you have to experiment with different? I've tried to record a piano before, and it's not sounded like that. It sounded terrible.
not easy. Yeah,
Yeah.
recording piano is a pain in the hoop.
Yeah.
I kind of like, well, I don't know how to record a piano, but I was learning how to record piano um down in Limerick, where I did a master's in music technology a long time ago.
Oh, right.
Jurgen Simpson was my lecturer there.
Yeah.
So he kind of showed me how to kind of try attempt to record a piano, but he used to use like 5 or 7 mics to record all the time. I still just use 2 mics, which is crazy. But no, I've got like a decent enough mic pre and a compressor to try and get a good balance. But all average kind of off the shelf equipment and a shit piano, but just a bit of time,
Yeah.
trying to get it right.
And the chords themselves, did you kind of well, in general with chord sequences, I've been thinking about this after listening to your album and working out some of the sequences and thinking about how like if you just hit notes at random, like it's not going to sound good, just randomness in with
Yeah,
12 notes.
yeah,
But at the same time, we're attempting to like come up with new variations of those 12 notes, so that it's not just like C, G, A minor, F or something, we're
yeah.
it's really hard to come up with kind of a new harmonic language, I suppose, but it sounds like what you're doing to me is like you've got chords and they sound different from other people's chords. And
That's amazing. Wow. I, 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 I just try not to do the AEG thing, and just try. I just like it's always just this sort of fight, this sort of balance composing. You go somewhere and I think, oh, that reminds me too much of Sade, or it reminds me too much of like I don't know, the police or something. So go somewhere else. So it's always just this navigation of trying to go somewhere else and finding the place that I enjoy. And I know that like there's quite a lashback to that kind of jazz chord area that people find it a little bit too fantastic sometimes. But I've always loved weird chord modulations. That's who I gravitate towards when I'm listening to music. I love that stuff.
yeah,
But
well,
but
yeah.
but you know this theory inside out. I don't know that theory at all. So for me, I would pick up a guitar and I would tune it to a way that I don't understand. I don't know anything that's happening on the fretboard. Just listen, just keep playing and listening is kind of how it works for me.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask. Yeah, that's so your ear is just listening out for things you like and then going
Absolutely.
that, that. I mean, when I was working at those chords, I wasn't kind of trying to relate them to a key or something like that. Theoretically, I think it's more like they just sound good. Like the one rule of music theory is if it sounds good, then do it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I
And
remember having a music theory teacher telling me that you're not allowed play two-thirds of a chord in two different registers. You're not allowed. And I was like, yes, I am. Fuck you. you know, and also playing with other musicians as well. And I play them one of my dunk chords, and I say, I think that's like a B flat minor. And they're like, that's an F major, you absolute mentor. Like I just don't have the language that I've just got my own thing I'm trying out, I suppose.
class. That's the way to do it. I mean, naming chords is always there's many ways to do it. It's always ambiguous. It's not like it's yeah. You could fight over it with people on the internet all day long if you want.
Yeah, I spotted that when you made that video of, and thank you for doing that, of going through some of my tunes, that you were going, you played a chord and you're like, you could call that an F or you could call that a B, that sort of thing. So I like, maybe someday I should sit down and learn that shit for a couple of years and see where I get. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I don't know. I think I naturally, from the very beginning of my playing guitar, I was naturally just interested. I was like learning scales and keys and full of chords and writing these like horrible pieces that were just like going through chords, like 1, 2, 3 in the key up and down, very kind of like symmetrical Lego blocks or something. I don't know. My mind just enjoys that. But the ambiguity thing, I think it's interesting how in APhex's music he always uses chords that are like possibly a D minor, but maybe it's an F major. It's
Yeah,
really in between. And if you watch other people who are analyzing like Avril 14th, that is completely like that all the way through. You're like, it's A flat major, and then at the end you go, no, it's F minor. It's like sixth
it's like
chord.
a subversion, like
Yeah.
sort of. I'm really excited. You've got an EP coming out of APhex guitar covers, don't you? I'm
Yes.
I'm really interested in this because I've watched some of your, I think it's Instagram clips, and you're figuring out the melody, and it's so funny the whole idea of interpretation, because I've noticed that you might put the weight on a particular note, and I would be like, no, the weight's on the other note, and it's just interpretation. I love that because this is going through your lens. Then I really enjoy that. That's cool.
Yeah, thanks. That's a weird thing. I was listening to my version of Avril 14th, which I think is pretty much just like guitar version of the
Okay.
piano version. But in the B section of it, I did notice, oh, I'm not playing some of the notes in there. Yeah, so I did just kind of hear it a different way, which often happens with music. It's happened to me so many times that I've transcribed a song to teach a student and I just heard it, this way, and then I write it out for them and get them to play it, and they're like, "This doesn't sound like the song."
Yeah,
Like,
it's funny
oh,
like that. But I never had it. I never did it much playing other people's music. Like I studied classical piano years ago, but like with guitar, I've never really sat down and learned other people's music. I just use it to compose my things. I haven't played the guitar in 6 months probably, and then I'll do a flurry of a week of loads of guitar, and then I'll forget about it again. It's just a tool to me. I don't have the kind of chops that you have, you know. It's just I couldn't aspire to that kind of level.
Yeah, it's like a interesting thing as to whether it's a blessing or a curse. I don't use the guitar much in my own music, and I prefer to be working, on modular synths where I haven't got a clue about what the chord is and don't
So do
have.
you think about these two things as very separate disciplines then?
I'm trying to combine them into one thing that doesn't have any uh, thoughts, just composing music from whatever. I have started to like play guitar more as a way to start a piece of music. I've been like,
Right.
first thing is like pick up the guitar and just close my eyes and just come up with something, and then that's the beginning of something. So it's all should all synthesize together, hopefully. But in for a long, long time it was separate, and I was just making electronic music, and it was one thing, and I was like playing jazz and doing guitar stuff was another thing. But
Right.
keeping
Okay.
it separate like that, it's not great. It's like a split personality.
I often think about that about doing kind of commission works. So that like if I've written music for like theater and for telly and stuff like that, and I always think of that as work with a brief. I'm trying to craft something for a client, and I think it's really different. It's like a 180 degrees over to what is my own artistic expression. Both things inform each other all the time, but it's like like you say, it's a bit of a split personality thing, and maybe it's dangerous, and I should try and put them back together again. I don't know.
Nah, I think it's good to work in different ways. Yeah, there's no one way. I would also like to do a bit more of that. I've done like a little bit, done a few things for video games and a few things for animation and just little projects coming in, and they're really enjoyable to not be the person in creative control of the music.
Yeah, it can be really hard. It can be really, really hard. Like properly challenging stuff to do, but when it works, it can be great. Like I remember I wrote music for like a Jacob's Biscuits ad, like a Kimberly ad,
Deadly.
and it was like the brief was basically to write like a 70s Queen drive time radio rock tune. And it was just bliss. It was such a cool job. I got really well paid and really quick phone call with this director. And he's like, can you do something that's kind of like Queen? I was like, yeah. And it was done in a few days. Like it was so much fun because I would never make that sort of music
Brilliant.
myself.
Did you
You
write
know,
lyrics yourself? And
there was no lyrics. It was just
right.
instrumental, like kind of like like close harmony, guitar solo, and piano and rock drums, that kind of stuff. It was,
Is
you
that
know,
on? Is it on YouTube? That ad?
oh, it's everywhere.
Ah, class. Love to dig that out and watch it. So on the Esmeralda track later on, the this vocals snippets of vocals, they're lovely. What can you say anything about those?
It's the Jets Crush on You, which is like an incredible pop song. If you I don't know if you know it, it's like a
No, don't know it.
mid pop song from the kind of early mid 80s. It's kind of like a little girl boy
Meet.
band, like a little pop outfit, but just exceptional pop song. And I found the acapella of it and was like, I'm having that. Thank you very much. And just chopped it up and moved it about.
Class. The second track on the album, Dickie Hip. Great track names. I love the track names.
I think that's probably the most accomplished track on the album. That's my fave. I was really, really happy with that one. It was deadly.
Is the rhythm at the beginning, which I'll just play here for a sec. Is that the subharmonium?
It is. It's a combination of that, which is a zero control,
Yeah,
and yeah, that subharmonic thing. So with this zero control, what's really great about it is that you have an 8 note grid like this, 8 notes going along, but you've got not dials for timing, so you can put the timing really off on every step, so the grid gets really messed up. It's like very much like that kind of Jay Dilla idea of messing with the grid of music. You know, it's like one thing for a drummer to kind of play sloppy and humanized, but when it's electronic and it has all these kind of odd spacings, it just does some other kind of language of funk that I just love, and I was really happy with that one. That was a goodie.
the groove is very unique. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's reminds me of like you know how if you just take any snippet of speech and repeat it,
Hmm.
as you listen to it, it starts sounding like rhythmical and melodic just
Hmm.
because it's repeating perfectly.
Yeah, yeah,
And
entrainment. So you start to entrain your mind to
exactly,
what's happening. Like, yeah, I love it.
that's a great word. Yeah, entrainment. So and there's also like some clapping. Is that a recording of you clapping?
That's my ties.
Special insights. Special.
Yeah.
And then what else comes in there? It's
Oh, I saw you talk about it in your video, and it's
the chords, of course. Yeah, what that's like a beautiful sound. What's that?
so that's a Seal Orchestra. A Seal Orchestra 2 synth. It's like early 80s Italian synth, and it just has the most luscious tone. It's unspeakable. It's incredible. It's like there's no MIDI or CV into it or anything. You have to play it, but it's
Right.
like it's 48 polyphony, so that you can really go to town on it, and it's just got just fantastic tone to it. I absolutely love it. It's just one of those things that you turn on. You're gonna have to like drop whatever you're doing for an hour because it's just one of those addictive sounding things, you know.
Oh, amazing. Where'd you get that?
I bought that on the eBay.
Yay.
And I think Portishead used one on their third album, and once they had used one, the prices of these things skyrocketed. You used to get them for 200 quid, and now they're like a grand to buy. It's that famous story, you know. It's crazy.
Still though, like not like 5 grand.
No, no, that's true.
I'm gonna get one now. Let's just listen to that. Yeah, the dissonance there in the last one. I just like it's when you're talking about jazz chords, you know, it's easy to for me anyway. I know like loads of chords and jazz standards or whatever. So if I'm like writing some music and you just put in a jazz chord into something, it's hard to explain it, but chords have a kind of idiomatic thing where if one is just jazzy and the rest aren't, just sticks out like a sore thumb and doesn't sound good. You have to have like you have to have a whole sound to the whole thing. It's really hard to do as a balancing act, but you know that chord sequence that you got there just like has that balance to it where it's just like everything leading to the next thing nicely with an interesting dissonance.
Oh,
Sorry,
cool. That's great to hear. Thanks. Right.
but next track, let's go. Oh, this one's with the vocoder.
Just get it.
Oh no, an ad. Boo. So many ads on YouTube lately.
Stop playing my bloody music off YouTube.
I know, yeah. Why am I like I have the album?
But that's I like nobody has any control over where your music goes. It's a funny conversation. I just think just stick it out there. I think Spotify is an absolutely evil, insidious organization, and they've systematically fucked up the art form that I love. They really have, but
I
the,
agree,
the
and
actual the nature of music has changed because of their hideous practices. But
yes,
that's
but
how it is. But that's how it is. So
yeah,
I could pull all my music off Spotify, but I want people to listen to it as well. So there's that.
that dilemma though, it's like the musicians ourselves, our own agreement to be on those platforms is part of our. We have to if we complain about Spotify, we have to admit our own side in it. Putting our
Yeah,
music on there, it's like, okay, we'll play by their rules. Damn them. It's just
yeah.
I
I
don't
I
know.
had I have forgotten to put some stuff on Spotify, and I just think please buy on Bandcamp, and Bandcamp will be fucked in another couple of years. But who knows what we'll be doing to put music out in a few years. But in the meantime, the affect of the work of art of the music transcends all of that economical, ethical shit. The art, uh, my kind of personal sort of belief, if you will, is that the act of engaging with art, music, whatever, is kind of paramount. It's really, really important for people for developing empathy and understanding, and it's a muscle that needs to be that needs sorry to get all highfalutin here, but it's a muscle that needs to be kind of exercised by an engagement with art, and that transcends how important Spotify is. So whatever, I'll
Yes.
keep uploading.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that because I did want to ask you about that exact, just, well, the broad subject of you're making the music, you're putting it out there, and even without Spotify and streaming it, even without that, even if you look at how many records are coming out constantly, it's an overwhelming amount of music that's just coming out constantly, you know, it's impossible to keep up with it all. It's like if
Yeah,
you follow newsletters like First Floor, whatever it is, like there's like many of those, and there's many releases every single week, many, like way more than they can listen to either. So that's just the cream of the crop, and even the cream
yeah.
of the crop, you'll never listen to all those ones. So
I
it's
quite like it. Do
yeah,
you find it overwhelming and sort of disturbing, or like have you kind of made peace with it, or how do you feel about it?
yeah, good question. Like I think at times it can feel dejecting when you're like trying to make something, but there's this like massive sea. But at the same time, I do feel like okay, the only way to deal with that is to keep making it and keep on putting it out there and be happy.
Yeah, but it's sort of it's sometimes think of it as like, oh, there's people wearing too many different types of clothes. Why don't they all just wear the same clothes? Like it's good. People are putting loads of music out. If only a handful of people hear it, that's okay. Like there was a crazy model in the 70s, 60s, 70s where there was an explosion of music being bought by a small amount of practitioners, and it's evening out a bit. I just think that's sort of healthy. I'm okay with that, and I'm okay if 50 people buy a record of mine. That is amazing. I'm overjoyed by that. I think it's amazing, like so deadly. I'll keep going. That's okay.
That's great. That's great attitude. It kind of it
But
reminds
if
me.
49 buy it, they can fuck off. No. No, like I just think it's good. Release your music, make your music, and put it out. It's good. Totally.
Yeah, someone I think it was actually um what's that guitarist John, really famous guitarist singer, sings with the Grateful Dead and does all his blues stuff.
I don't
No,
know.
no, God, I can't think of his name, but he said like what that the too many people he knows, they put out an album and they have no goal in mind for that album. So no matter how good it does, it's not successful in their mind. You know, nobody, they sell like 100,000 copies. Oh, you know, that's terribly disappointing or whatever it is. But if so, he said you just have to like set a number, and then, you know, if it's 50, then that's successful. It doesn't matter how many it is.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just do
totally.
project to project.
I heard Laurie Anderson talking about something similar in that vein recently, and she was saying that she kind of came from this explosion of artists in the 70s in New York, and they were ridiculously lucky that they just hit upon this time. Now she was being a bit, maybe downplaying her talent there, I think, because she is amazing. But she was kind of saying these days that's not going to happen. It's never going to happen that you're going to talk to that many people again. So if you have 300 fans, that's incredible. Be happy with that and work towards it. Like it's always good to make your art and put it out there. So I'm very much a believer in that kind of attitude.
Yeah, that's a great attitude. John Mayer was the guitarist, I was thinking.
Oh, right. Okay. Right.
But yeah, it reminds me of like when I did the album launch for Zoid versus the Jazz Musicians of Ireland Volume 1 in Crawdaddy in
Yeah. Oh, wow.
2007. Like 80 people went to the gig, and I was like disappointed because it was like 250 capacity little venue. I was like, only 80 people came, and now I'm like, wow, that would be so
Yeah.
great to do a gig with
Yeah.
80 people. Would be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. I think I remember doing the launch of The Curse of Valdalobo, the Ambulance album on Planet Mu, and it was in Whelan's, and maybe like 150 people came. I don't know what the
Yeah.
number was. It was kind of like semi-filled looking, and was like going, shit, I thought we'd be like doing better than this. And now I look back on it, I'm like, Christ, that was amazing.
Funny stuff. I mean, this is a good attitude, though, to just be happy doing what you're doing. And there is a lot of like musicians. There's a lot of kind of negativity about like, we can't sell music and we can't. It's hard to make a living out of it, but if you're not trying to make a living out of it, then
Yeah,
then you're
you
free
really
to.
have to, like, that's there's sort of things you can do, I think,
Yeah,
uh, and it's something that's happened. Maybe I'm mental here, but I'm just like I can hear it in music these days. You can hear somebody's attitude that they want their image to be loved or the story around themselves to be loved rather than trying to create an artistic affect, like, and I can never understand that the way so much music and art is about what's happening around the art rather than the actual experience of going through this thing. And I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity when you go to some big art opening and there's like this loads of spiel about this really important issue, and the actual work itself doesn't really do much. And I don't understand that. It's a missed opportunity or something. I don't know.
yeah, I get that. Totally get that. So, I mean, we're not going to get through all the 14 songs, but if we just
Good.
pick out a couple more. But that zoom and enhance one with the that's great. Did you write that as a song first and then do the vocoder part, or put it all together?
I think that was music first, and then just shoehorning words in wherever I could. There's like some really appalling lyrics in there as well, like, but it was more just to get the bleh, just to get the sound, really.
Hyperstition is maybe my. It's hard to pick a favorite on the album, but the beats on that one are totally lush.
Oh, cool. It's funny. When I was making that one, I was thinking of Dennis McNulty,
Oh, really?
a mutual friend, and I was like, this has a kind of a Dennisy vibe to it. I was thinking,
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder if he'll hear this when I was making it. And I called into Dennis recently, and he was like, "Oh, that track Hyperstition, I really like it." And I was like,
Oh,
"That's great, right? It's delighted to
love
go."
that.
Yeah.
That's class. Um, and let's see. the Tala strategy, that one is great too. Grotbag's Cauldron. Just the name of that one. That's
Do you remember Emu's World on UTV?
that's what it was. I was trying to remember where it was from.
So all whenever it cut over to Grotbag's gaff, she had this cauldron going in the background with this bloop 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 kind of sound, and it just the track kind of the sequence reminded me of that. So
And Dime Tooth is class two. There's a Dime Tooth.
my buddy Paul wanted to open the album with that track actually, and maybe he was right. I don't know. That should have been the first track on the album, but does that even matter anymore? I don't know.
But you were like Esmeralda's the opener for you.
I felt it was a strong opener,
Yeah.
but I could be wrong.
No, I'd go with that. I think Esmeralda is a great opener. Yeah, just like with the yeah, you could go either way, but it's nice to have a strong kind of rhythmic track opening.
Yeah, I think so.
And Beyond Rangoon, what was the title of that one?
It's a John Boorman film that's absolutely appalling. That well, it's not appalling, but it's like just kind of one of those not without my daughter movies that you'd see. I just would see in the video shop all the time, and it was always one of those rent that. Nope, it was always one of those two films. So it's just become a bit of a running joke with friends of mine that we're going to watch Beyond Rangoon tonight. Like, I mean, never.
That's funny.
It's just I see Rangoon is now Burma, is it, or which is now something else, isn't it?
Rangoon is Yangon.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah, I've been there actually. It's
Have you?
yeah,
Wow.
it's amazing place, Burma. It's really unfortunate what's happening there. Like, well, lots of places in the world are crap, but that one's bad. We did that like fundraising album for that. That's still picking up
Right.
sales every now and then. But yeah, Yangon's an amazing place. It's got this amazing thing, Shwedagon Pagoda, this huge pagoda that is in like the center of Yangon. That it's just like something from another realm. It's like people just go
Wow.
there and meditate, and that's amazing. Super nice people, Burmese.
Been a long time since I've done some good traveling, and I would like to do so again.
Same, yeah. That was like 2010. I was there, and okay, yeah. Since then, not a lot of traveling. Definitely want to do a bit more. Just going to different places, doing different things. It's one thing about making music. Really, I think that like if you just sit in a room and make music for years and years and years, there's not. It's hard to get inspiration.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember seeing an interview with Limmy, the
Yeah.
comedian, and he was there. They were asking him about going on holidays, and he was saying, "No, I don't need to." And they were like, "Why don't you need to go on holidays?" And he goes, "Because if I just sit there and think about it, that's pretty much 90% there. So I don't need to go." I thought that was great.
Oh my God. I love Limmy. I
Yeah, it's very good.
totally just, they should have just given him, free reign to just keep making Limmy's show.
He's tapped into some weird zeitgeist psychology better than any comedian. I think it's really strange what he's been able to do. It's great, really, really good.
The techno one, the techno video.
With the VHS player, no?
No, that one's class two. No, this one's like how to make a techno track
Oh
or do
gosh.
techno DJing and keeps on like gets aggro with the crowd.
Fantastic stuff.
Okay, well, that's that's good. That's a wrap. That's a great conversation. Wonder if anyone will listen to it. I've no idea.
I think we've hit an hour, haven't we?
Yeah,
Great.
we have hit an hour. Yeah, we have, and a little bit more. But
I'd love to see you try and I'd like to see you put the chords together for Beyond Rangoon because I don't know what they are, but because I remember I made that on it was an Oberheim. Oh God, what's it called again? A Matrix 1000 that I have.
oh yeah,
I made there. I did some weird tuning stuff and made something on it, and then slowed the tape down loads and was like, oh, I really like this now, but I don't know what I played at all. So it'd be
Challenge
cool to.
accepted. I did the first video was like part one, so definitely going to be
Oh
more.
no way!
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I don't mean to be giving you more work to do.
No, this is like when I started the channel 3 months ago or so, I was like doing analysis of stuff, and it's something I always wanted to do, but never really put the time aside to do it. And it's great when you do. It's like a kind of a secondary benefit of doing that. I'm going to do a video every week on something that I want to do, which makes me do that thing. The transcribing the songs to the APhex and Square Pusher, and I'm going to do autechre, and going to do like whatever music I like or people suggest. And I
I
learn
remember
a lot. I learn
I
loads.
did a little analysis of. Do you know a track called "Fold 4 Rap 5" by
Very
autechre?
well. It's one of my favorite autechre tracks.
Yeah, I did a kind of analysis of the rhythmic structure of that, and it's really, really fascinating. And I ended up talking to Sean on
John Carpio.
Sean from autechre
Oh,
on
oh,
what's it called? Mastodon. That he's on that
yeah,
social media platform, and spoke to him about the kind of construction of that. And
amazing.
we had a great little chat about it actually.
What?
It's probably still archived there. I don't know.
Oh man, love to hear that. That's
Because there's a Laurie Spiegel track from about 1978 that uses the same rhythmic structure almost,
really
but it didn't come out till about 10 years ago. So it was in a vault somewhere. So I was like, I know this is a crazy question, but would you have heard this anywhere before? And he's like, no, we just had the idea separately, but it's interesting.
crazy.
It kind of relates. It relates to a risse rhythm a little bit,
Yeah,
but also it also doesn't. So it's
like
kind of
like
a
uh
shepherd tone of
shepherd
sound
tone rhythm.
of
Shepherd
rhythm
tone
in a
rhythm.
way. Like yeah,
The reason why I said Sean Carpio, the drummer Sean Carpio, he
yeah.
was in Banff in Canada, and came back from it, and he was like VJ Iyer was there, piano player, amazing jazz piano player, and they were playing that track, Fold 4 Rap 5.
Ooh,
Yeah, and he
is there
played
a
me a
recording
record.
of that anywhere?
I don't have one. Like it's not out or anything. It was just like at a jazz summer camp thing. They played it, and
Wow.
and he was playing me the recording, and I was like, oh my god, that is absolutely class. The idea
It's
of like tempos moving is like way
as a structure, yeah, but the way
yeah.
that the melody is placed in it so that the resolve is always sort of circular is just wonderful. Like it's so, and I've tried it. I mapped it, went and then tried to make my own composition in the same fashion, and it's really, really hard to get it to resolve and to you know, make musical sense. So it's pretty cool piece of work. Like,
That's class. Okay. Well, we could definitely keep going on for
yeah, sorry.
a few hours. No way, that's a perfectly good ending point. Okay, well, I'll stop the recording, and that'll be the video. So yeah, there we go. The recording stopped. So thanks a million. That was really enjoyable chat.
Are you gonna do you edit them down or do you leave them or what do you do?
Tiny bit of editing, just like if there's like a few dead spots, I'll just chop them out, but not much
Yeah,
editing.
cool.
Still says recording.